Sergeant's making calls to make sure we get the members here so we can get this meeting started.
I can loan you some money.
All right, good afternoon. I'm told we have a quorum, and that will allow us to call the roll.
Carter. Jeffries.
Here.
Shajian. Here. Blumenfield. Bonilla. Buchanan. Ing. Bertani. Here. Galgiani. Logue. Miller.
Miller's out there. Are you here, Mr. Miller?
Miller. Norby. Here. Portantino. Solorio.
All right, we have a quorum. Assemblymember Carter is replacing Assemblymember Chair Bonnie Lowenthal today. And item number 3, AB 1536 by Mr. Miller, has been put over. And we have 2 items on the consent calendar. AB 1535 by Halderman, AB 1567 by Jeffries, which are on consent. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Jeffries.
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Carter. Aye. Carter, aye. Shajian. Aye. Shajian, aye. Blumenfield. Bonilla. Buchanan. Ing. Aye. Ing, aye. Bertani. Aye. Bertani, aye. Galgiani. Aye. Galgiani, aye. Logue. Miller. Aye. Miller, aye. Norby. Aye. Norby, aye. Portantino. Aye. Portantino, aye. Solorio. Aye.
Bills out. Bills are out. 10-0 on the consent calendar, which brings us to item number 1, AB 1452 by Assemblymember Hill, child passenger restraints. The chair has a support recommendation. The vice chair has an opposed recommendation. Please proceed. part of my bipolar operations today.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you. This issue you've seen before. This AB 1452 seeks to improve current law by informing parents about existing child safety seat inspection resources that they can utilize free of charge for their child's passenger restraint system. I've hosted several safety seat inspection events in my district, and I was amazed at how many parents didn't know that they were installing the child safety seat improperly. Over 90% of parents and caregivers believe their child safety seats are installed correctly. However, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration research shows that 7 out of 10 children are improperly restrained, putting them at risk of serious injury or death in a crash. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death of children 3 to 14 years of age. Many of these deaths and untold injuries can be prevented through the proper use of child safety seats. Current law already requires hospitals to notify parents about existing state law regarding child safety seats. This bill simply, and I say simply, expands the notification to include information about where parents can go for free inspections. That's all it does, members, is just put on the same information and form they have a notice of where they can get and obtain the information in those child safety seat inspections that we've had. Interestingly, about 80% of the parents and grandparents and caregivers that come for those inspections, we find their seats are installed improperly, and they welcome the opportunity to learn how to install them properly. I ask for your aye votes, member.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hill,
Yes, Mr. Gadget.
this is information, this is outreach, this is education. By no means this will have any liability to the hospitals that they're coming out. It's a matter of, here it is, use it to your best of capabilities. We're not enforcing you. We're not the enforcer. We're a messenger. Am I clear by saying that?
You're absolutely clear. That is absolutely true. And I'm just going back and reliving my experience as a father almost 30 years ago now when my daughter was born. I didn't have a clue of how to put that in, and did it improperly for many years because there were no opportunity. I thought I was doing it right, but it obviously wasn't.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. But there's no liability. This is just placing that information. Then they're already giving information out that it is law. This just says where they can go and have it checked.
Is that a witness you've brought with you today?
Pardon me?
Is that a witness?
That is a witness. Yes,
testify?
sir.
Let's have you testify.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim Madden, representing the California chapter of the American College of Emergency Physicians. And unfortunately, we see the impact of what Mr. Hill just described when parents are not properly installing the child restraints. After accidents, these children come into our emergency departments. And what's most frustrating to us is that these are avoidable and preventable injuries and deaths. The statistics are amazing when you look at how many parents believe they are doing it correctly when, in fact, they are not doing this correctly. We believe this is a simple measure to hand out information, to give parents those resources to ensure they are doing the right thing. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in support? All right. Mr. Norby, you had a question?
I'm glad you kept emphasizing the word simply, because if we would simply leave the law alone for maybe at least 5 or 6 years, parents might be able to start to know what it is. But just, I think, I don't know, was it this session or last year, we changed the child safety seat law again. So it's kind of like the restricted driver's license law. A lot of parents think they're abiding by it, but they don't know what it is. And a lot of the police officers I talk to aren't sure either. I'm reluctant to go along with this just because when we change the law again here, I don't know if the hospitals are going to know it. They're going to tell their clients what they think the law is at the time. It takes a lot to disseminate various micromanaged information based on the weight or the height of the child. Like you, I had a child a couple of decades ago, and now I've got a new one, so I leave all that up to my wife in terms of what the law is and if she's following it. But when 90% think they're following the law and 70% aren't, I don't know if that's their fault or our fault for continuing to make the law such a moving target. On the liability issue, I'm sure if there's a horrible accident involving this, I mean, obviously the lawyer and the client is going to go after anybody that they think they can find. So to say that, no, the hospitals aren't liable, if we get every lawyer in the state, trial lawyer, to sign on to that, I'd be more assured, but I'm sure they're going to go after whoever they can, including those that dispense the information at the time that they thought was accurate. So I understand the purpose of it, but those are my concerns, and of course you're welcome to address them. Thank you.
Before we proceed, is there any opposition in the audience? Not seeing any. Any questions from fellow members? Not seeing any. Please close.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Norby, the issue that you raised, two issues. One, the child safety seat law has been in place for many, many years, and that new addition that you're talking about, raising the height of the child and the weight, has been in place for a couple of years. But I just became a grandfather for the first time 5 months ago. So my daughter and her husband now are dealing with how to do it. So regardless of whether it's 5 or 10 years, they didn't have an issue with that before. They didn't have a reason to understand or to learn how child safety seats were installed or how to do it properly. So there are new students that are coming up almost obviously daily and on a regular basis that need to have the information. And the information that we're providing, and as I mentioned simply, the hospitals are already required to let the parents know or the caregiver know that it is the law that they have to have a child safety restraint in seat. All this does is add the fact that if you need assistance in how to install it, if you need assistance in how to check to see if you're doing it properly, here's where you can go. California Highway Patrol and other resources that are available free of charge to provide that opportunity for them. So that's simply and when I said simply, it is simply, that's all you're adding to what is already required by law.
Just simply an informational
Just the information.
brochure and or discussion?
Well, pardon me?
What the hospitals, the facilities are required, is it a pamphlet that they provide, or do they actually have to provide some physical
Well, they're just
instruction?
giving the information that this is what the law states, and this is just added to that information and clarification of this is what is required, and here's where you can go to find out if you're doing it properly or how to get instructions on how to do it if you don't already
But they don't
know.
have to physically go out to
You
a
don't do
vehicle
any
and-
inspections, no check, no, and that's why that gets into the liability
Right,
question
that's-
that there is none.
Okay.
And that's why the
Well, that's good-
hospitals
that's good clarification.
not opposed
Yes,
to
go
it.
ahead.
So if a hospital inadvertently doesn't hand them the sheet of paper and then we have some kind of a tragic accident on the way home, is there liability then or not?
I would not being an attorney and not knowing I don't know what the status is today because they already have to provide information to you. This just adds a piece to an additional part of that information that they're handing to you. So they're required to give you information already.
Well, but
this
the
just
info-
adds to that. I don't know
but
what
are you
the
talking
legal
about the
response.
information they're required to give you in terms of when you have to take any prescriptions and that kind of stuff? Or are you talking about information on car seats?
This is information on car seats.
Okay, thanks.
That's all.
All right. The committee has a support recommendation. We need a motion. We need a motion. We have a second. We have a second. All right. Call the roll.
The actions do pass to appropriations. Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Carter? Aye. Carter, aye. Ashajian?
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Blumenfield? Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Buchanan, aye. Ing? Ing, aye. Furutani? Furutani, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Logue? Miller?
Aye.
Miller, aye. Norby? Portantino? Portantino, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. 12-0, the bill's out.
Bill's out on a 12-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members, very much.
Next item, AB 1524 by Assemblymember Allen on commercial air carriers and hot air balloons.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jeffries, a member of the committee. I'm pleased to present AB 1524. This is a bill that ensures hot air balloon businesses have access to affordable and adequate liability insurance by making previous legislation permanent law. Prior to 2004, existing law required the Public Utilities Commission to establish liability insurance standards for hot air balloon operators. Because no authority was provided to the contrary, the Commission set insurance standards for hot air balloons under the same category as other commercial air operators, which includes small aircraft engaged in cargo and charter services. As a result, insurers either withdrew from the hot air balloon liability insurance market, offered coverage that did not meet the criteria set by the PUC, or offered insurance coverage that was cost prohibitive for business. To address this problem, the legislature removed hot air balloon operators from the PUC's jurisdiction on a temporary basis in 2004 and again in 2008. To date, the PUC has reported no negative consequences caused by this legislation. AB 1524 will permanently remove the hot air balloon industry from the Public Utilities Commission's jurisdiction and to protect small business owners from any future unnecessary and cost-prohibitive regulations. I have here with me today Gabriel Gundling from Napa Valley Balloons Incorporated and Nick Zanjani of the Public Utilities Commission as my witnesses.
Very good. Please proceed.
My name is Gabriel Gundling. I'm with Napa Valley Balloons, obviously here to support 1524. I think for us, failure to pass this bill would constitute a major step back and would be a crippling blow to the ballooning industry. As a small business owner in Napa, California, and a lifelong resident of California, I'm hopeful for your support for our industry and local community. While small, our industry provides local jobs, attracts tourism from around the world, and provides locals and tourists with unforgettable memories of our spectacular state. So I thank you. And
very good. Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Nick Zanjani with the California Public Utilities Commission. Not too much more to add than what Assemblymember Allen has already stated, but yet commercial air operators are required to maintain evidence of liability insurance coverage on file with the PUC pursuant to General Order 120 at the PUC and Public Utilities Code. Now, as you can imagine, a commercial air operator that ships millions of dollars worth of cargo and is a large aircraft is much different than a much smaller hot air balloon, and so it makes sense that there would be a need for different insurance requirements under the two different kinds of aircrafts. So we're very much in support of this bill. We're very much in support of having the locals take care of it, and we think it's a good measure, and we support it.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Is anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? Please limit your comments to 2 minutes if you would.
I can do that easily.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hi, my name's Kim Kleist, and I'm with
I don't have any control over that one.
My name's Kim Kleist, and I'm with Napa Valley Balloons. Wholeheartedly in favor of support for this measure. Without it, well, prior to its initiation, things were pretty bleak for us. Seems like a reasonable, logical solution, and it's helped the entire balloon industry in the state of California. Thanks to this resolution, the market has opened up. We now have competition, and because of that competition, the rates have also become competitive and affordable. So, and to my knowledge, there has been no negative consequence. Counties are pretty good at maintaining insurance regulations for all of us. So, I wholeheartedly in support of this bill and hope you pass it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Is there any witnesses in opposition? Not seeing any. Questions from members? Cacho, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a minor, I'm all in support of empowering local government. Where does the liability fall now from if I'm assuming the local government is going to look into the proper insurance and if it's maintained, or what kind of responsibilities brings it to the local government versus PUC?
Well, essentially, with this bill, it would track what's happened over the last 8 years and no longer be under the PUC's purview. It would be local government that would regulate and work with the local business owners to work on the liability issues.
And the local governments are willing to accept this responsibility?
To my knowledge, they are, and they've been doing it for the last 8 years without any problems.
I move the bill.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions from the members? Not seeing any. I'd like to close. We have support on both sides.
Yes, this is a bill that's good for small business. It makes sense for local government. I urge an aye vote, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
The actions to pass appropriations. Jeffries.
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Carter. Carter, aye. Ashajian.
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Blumenfield. Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla. Bonilla, aye. Buchanan. Ing. Aye. Ing, aye. Furtani. Galgiani. Aye. Galgiani, aye. Logue. Miller. Aye. Miller, aye. Norby. Aye. Norby, aye. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Solorio. Aye. Solorio, aye. 11-0.
11-0, your bill's out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll take up item number 4 at this time until Mr. Fuhr gets here. All right, go ahead and proceed. I'm under the understanding that you've agreed to the amendments.
Yes, that's-
And therefore, we have support on both sides, so please proceed.
Very good. We did just want the opportunity to speak about this bill because it concerns our veterans, and we thought it was a great opportunity to highlight what I believe is a very positive bill for our veterans. And I do accept all of the amendments that were listed in the analysis. AB 1550 brings the veteran plate into line with other specialized plates by increasing the fees. And the great news about this is that these fees will actually benefit our county offices of Veterans Services, and they are chronically underfunded. This is an opportunity simply by aligning these license plate fees along with our other specialty plates and bringing them into parity that we could actually generate some additional income for our veterans. AB 1550 also ensures that the war stickers are available to honor and recognize the veteran's involvement in a particular war by himself, and these can also, of course, be purchased by non-veterans just to honor our veterans that have served. The current stickers have not changed or been added to since the end of the Vietnam War. So AB 1550 proposes to broaden the appeal and encompass stickers from recent and ongoing wars, and we believe that this will actually increase the sales of these plates. With no new state revenue available, it's now so important more than ever that we find a way to at least increase this revenue stream for our veterans. And we have chronically underfunded our county veterans service offices, and this additional revenue could really make a difference to them and to their families. I would also invite anyone who'd like to be a co-author to join in this bill, and we have with us Pete Conate to make his comments on behalf of our various veterans organizations.
Witnesses in favor.
Hi, my name is Pete Conate. I'm a lobbyist and a Vietnam veteran, and I represent the California Association of the County Veterans Service Officers, which will benefit from this bill, as well as the California State Commanders Veterans Council, the American Legion, AMVETS, and the Vietnam Veterans of America. Interestingly enough, I was on the staff of Assemblyman Mickey Conroy in 1992 when the first bill was passed, and at that time we thought we would sell an awful lot of license plates to the 2 million veterans in the state of California, and that has not proven to be the case. We've only sold about 26,000, so while it has been providing some funding to the CVSOs, approximately 2 years ago, Paul Cook carried a bill to change it to honoring veterans. And in looking at this bill, we also figured out that our problem was that we had made over 100 stickers, but most of the stickers were for very small organizations. So the bill also includes the ability to change the stickers, get rid of stickers that are no longer needed or necessary or are even outdated, and use the campaign ribbons from our more recent conflicts. I know you can't see them here too well, but the actual ribbon itself, which is awarded for Vietnam, the Gulf War, Afghanistan, and Iraq, actually fits quite neatly in the little square or the rectangle on the license plate itself. So we're looking forward to this bill and the funding. It will come in for CVSOs. As I'm sure you're all aware, I've been trying to get more funding for CVSOs for about 15 years now. So I'm going to keep plugging away, but this is one important step on increasing funding. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Any other witnesses in favor? Not seeing any. Any opposition? No opposition. Questions of the members? I have a motion and a second. I don't see any questions. Please close.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I do think this is very important. I think broadening it out to those who are not veterans by adding a line on the bottom that says honoring veterans, so you can purchase this just to honor veterans. You don't have to be one. We really think that this will perhaps sell more of these plates and could be of great benefit. Last year, the fund collected $614,000, so there is opportunity there to raise additional monies for our veterans in California. So with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote on this very important veterans issue.
Very good. We have a motion and a second with moved as amended. Please call the roll.
Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Carter? Carter, aye. Shajian?
Aye.
Shajian, aye. Blumenfield? Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla?
Aye.
Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Ing? Ing, aye. Furutani? Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Logue? Miller? Miller, aye. Norby?
Aye.
Norby, aye. Portantino? Portantino, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. 11-0. The bill. 11. Oh, the bill's out.
Congratulations. Your bill is out on 11-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next item is AJR 25 by Assemblymember Fuhr. The committee has a support recommendation, and the vice chair has an opposed recommendation. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair. Had I known there'd been a coup in the committee, I might have reconsidered presenting today. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So this AJR is about a very important issue in the Los Angeles region. The operation of commercial helicopters in our region is a source of significant concern. It's a public safety issue, and it's a quality of life issue. Currently, helicopter regulations are the exclusive authority of the FAA, and the FAA has not issued appropriate regulations in Los Angeles County to assure that, again, safety and quality of life are sufficiently protected. There have been examples of where helicopters have caused serious concerns. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded that flying at low altitudes was the cause of 2 fatal accidents in the hills over Los Angeles. There's also a widespread view that community organizations have executed agreements with helicopter operators that have not been honored, including, for example, helicopter operators who have caused concerts at the Hollywood Bowl to be stopped in mid-performance. So the resolution calls on Congress to enact and the President to sign a bill called the Los Angeles Residential Helicopter Noise Relief Act of 2011. This legislation is authored by Senator Feinstein and co-sponsored by Senator Boxer, and there's a companion House resolution, H.R. 2677, authored by Representative Berman, and it's co-sponsored by Brad Sherman, Henry Waxman, Adam Schiff, and Janice Hahn. These measures do what needs to be done. They call on the administrator of the FAA to issue the regulations I referred to earlier. The legislation, by the way, does exempt first responders for emergency purposes from the scope of the legislation, so such regulations would not pertain to them. 18 members of this legislature signed on to a letter in October 2011 urging Congress to enact H.R. 2677. So the bottom line is this. You know, I don't frequently author resolutions calling on Congress to take steps. But there are moments when our collective action can have an impact in Washington on measures that affect matters that are important, in this case important in the district I represent and for many legislators who represent neighboring jurisdictions. And I'd urge this committee to pass forward this resolution, sending the message that this legislature believes that these quality of life public safety issues in our region deserve protection. With that, I'd ask for an aye vote.
Witnesses in favor?
Mr. Chair, members, Steve Cowelmer on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County. We support this resolution, and we appreciate the author's efforts into addressing an issue we think is important to the county. We agree that this is a federal issue, that local regulations are not able to address this, and we agree that this is a quality of life issue in addition to being a public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Helene Meshar on behalf of the City of West Hollywood. The City of West Hollywood is also in support of this legislation. We are also directly working with our federal representatives in support of the federal legislation that this bill also addresses. And we thank Assemblyman Fuhrer for bringing this to the state legislature and would urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other members of the public in support? Any opposition? Not hearing or seeing any. Cajo, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions, if I may. I am very sympathetic because the area I come from, where they teach how to fly and becomes a nuisance, but this is for only L.A. County?
Yes, this
Not
resolution
statewide.
pertains to legislation because it's authored. It emanates from Los Angeles County, and the focus is Los Angeles County.
Okay, I appreciate that the emergencies are exempt, but how about police helicopter chasing a car? Is that considered?
Yeah, that's in the same category.
Okay. If they're nearby ag land, I know avocado trees require the helicopters spray at a very low altitude. How are they? How do they come into this picture?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Helicopters that spray. If you have an avocado orchard, and they're required to be sprayed by helicopter at a very low altitude because they cannot spray from bottom up. They test to be from top to bottom. Has that been taken into consideration?
The legislation only calls on the FAA to craft appropriate regulations. It doesn't specify what those regulations should be. So the FAA would work with stakeholders in the county to determine what would be the right regulations to deal with public safety and quality of life issues, taking into account all relevant factors.
Okay. Since you spelled out the emergencies, I was wondering if agriculture will come into the picture, something that we can move forward with the request that they be considered to be part of the resolution that's going forward.
Yeah, I should say in Los Angeles County, while there is agriculture, I don't believe that this is an issue that would pertain to Los Angeles County. I understand where the jurisdiction from which you come, it's a very different situation.
The only reason I know because we have them. If there's nearby horse ranch, the horses get real spooky, and we have to deal with this. And now I don't want another burden to our agriculturists who need these services out of necessity.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. Again, in Los Angeles County, again, the measure simply leaves to the discretion of the relevant authorities, the FAA, to craft regulations that make sense for that county.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Galgiani, and then Mr. Norby, and then Mr. Bloomfield.
I just wanted to echo that it's crop dusters, and we have many of them in the Central Valley, and I believe that in the Agoura Hills area north of Santa Monica is where there's some agriculture, and if you were to check in with Rich Mateus at the Farm Bureau and just make sure it's on their radar so that the Crop Dusters Association can be at the table when the discussions start.
I would be happy to call that to their attention. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Norby, you're next.
I understand you serving your constituents, your district. I appreciate that. Main reason I'm not going to support it is the reason I don't support any of these, because Congress has a job to do. I think they're going to do it no matter what we say. L.A. County has by far the largest congressional representation of any county in the country, and I think they can represent the county well, and I appreciate that as well. I did have a couple of questions maybe you could help me with. One has to do with news vehicles, news choppers, because if there's an accident, if there's a fire, I mean, the news cameras want to be there. It does involve freedom of speech. It is a major industry in L.A., and I'm not sure how FAA regulation would apply to them. Now, that's not addressed by your bill. You're just saying that you're supporting this bill, which would require the FAA to step in. Doesn't say how they'd step in, but
Correct.
I'm just not sure how they do that, because by definition those are routes which are not very specific and are somewhat chaotic. The second one has to do with the term "our region." L.A. County is a kind of a region, but it's more of a political map, which includes San Clemente Island and Santa Catalina Island, which are way off in the ocean, and parts of the desert, which are fairly inaccessible. My district abuts L.A. County, and you could say that, I mean, regionally, Fullerton, La Mirada, Buena Park, Artesia are fairly much the same. So I'm not sure if this would apply to the whole L.A. Basin, which is more of a geographic region as opposed to a political subdivision, because some of those same concerns might apply.
Let me address each of your, if I could, Mr. Norby, let me address each of your comments in turn. First, with regard to whether or not Congress would care about the state legislature's view on this issue, in much the same way that each of us takes into account the concerns of the cities and counties we represent, so too will Congress take into account the concerns of the state of California. It's not as though any member of this body, certainly of this committee, fails to consider the input from the cities and counties we represent. On the theory that you espoused, we would simply ignore them because we would know what to do on our own. I don't think that's how we function. I think there's a very valuable element to weighing in selectively, but in a focused way, on legislation that affects us. It informs the judgment of those who represent us. Now, as to the other two questions, the legislation is silent as to how it would relate specifically to news helicopters, as an example. The FAA would have to take into account the counterbalancing public safety and quality of life needs on the one hand, and the constitutional issues that you raised on the other, and fashion a practical approach. With regard to the issue of whether it should pertain to Los Angeles County or more broadly to neighboring counties, we're representatives of neighboring counties to seek a similar approach in Congress. I'm sure that the authors of the bill would take that input seriously. But at this point, the impetus for the bill emerges from Los Angeles County, where the problem has been particularly pronounced. But thanks for your observations.
Very good. Last one, Mr. Bloomfield.
Thank you. I'm a joint author of this measure, and I feel very strongly about it, and know a lot about the history of this. It's sort of it's another example where Congressman Berman is basically responding to his constituents and dealing with quality of life issues, whether it's the 405 freeway or something like this, where he's actually able to find a federal niche to respond to a local concern. I represent the other side of the hill, or from the majority of your district, and it's a big problem on that side of the hill as well. We've got a lot of constituents who are suffering from this kind of helicopter noise, and it's not just it's also the quote-unquote news when you're talking about the paparazzi, because there are a lot of celebrities, probably have more celebrities per capita in those hills than anywhere else in the state, and you've got a lot of the paparazzi aren't just bothering the people, the celebrities who live there, but all of the hardworking citizens who live along that flight path, and as they buzz down along them, and it's a real quality of life problem. I commend you for raising it and for here in the legislature to urge Congress to do the right thing, and again want to be fully supportive of it. And it just points out it's another example where Congressman Berman has been able to take the lead on this kind of quality of life thing. So thank you, and I urge everyone's support of this.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Is there any further questions from the members? Not seeing any? Please close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I, again, want to point out, I should have underscored at the outset the teamwork between our colleague, Mr. Bloomfield, and myself, and other members of this body who have joined together on this measure. And I really would appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chair, for the Vice Chair and others who share his persuasion to reconsider that initial recommendation in light of the important comments that have been made.
Very good. Thank you very much. Once again, we have a committee recommendation to support and a vice chair recommendation to oppose. Please call the roll. Oh, we do need a motion. Actually, that would help a lot. We have a motion and a second over here. Very good. Please call the roll.
The actions do pass. Jeffries?
No.
Jeffries, no. Carter? Aye. Carter, aye. Shajian? Blumenfield? Aye. Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Buchanan, aye. Ing? Aye. Ing, aye. Furutani? Furutani, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Logue? Logue, no. Miller? Miller, no. Norby? Norby, no. Portantino? Portantino, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. 9-4, the bill's out.
Congratulations. Your bill is out on a 9-4 vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues.
All right, members. We're gonna hold the roll open for a little bit to allow members the opportunity. We have another member who is still in another committee hearing, I believe 1 or 2. So if you'd like to add on, please come on over.